5 drivers were sent home 1 week ago, but for 9, the mission still remains as strong as ever for the championship. The path now moves to the cornfields in the Midwest, where live from the virtual Iowa Speedway, we welcome you to coverage of the first race in the round of 9 for the 2022 WORC Dynamo Designs National Series and the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110, live on the KBueno Racing Network. So happy to have you join us for another Thursday night of playoff action, where alongside Francisco Bacchiao atop the broadcast booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, we had a very tumultuous first round. Darlington, Bristol, and then the ultimate finale at Talladega culminated what was a very crazy first couple of races for a lot of them. We had a couple of drivers go home. We still got 9, a lot of them, majority, still working for this championship. This second round starts here, arguably the most pivotal until the championship for Homestead in a couple of weeks.
An exciting night awaits us here in the Midwest, and you mentioned that first round. That sounds like a very difficult round to have to go through just to get through the first part of these playoffs, but now we're moving on into the second portion of the playoffs. We're moving into Iowa here tonight. We're going to Nashville next week, and of course, we're capping it off, but just before that Homestead finale, it's going to be very exciting. Iowa's, it's a unique racetrack. It's about 5/8 of a mile in length, and it is very bumpy, especially as you move up the racetrack. So we're going to see several grooves work their way through a night. You're going to see guys go maybe to the bottom, kind of try the middle. You don't really want to go too much higher than that, otherwise you get into said bumps, and it could really upset the race car. And the Xfinity Series combination here at this racetrack is one of the best we've ever seen with any race car and racetrack combination. So I think we're going to be in for a fun night and a challenging night for these drivers to try and open up the round of 9.
It's all about driver skill in a combo like this. As you take a look at our KBueno track map, with images, of course, provided to us by Google Earth. And Francisco, you said this track very bumpy, and indeed it is. And not the oldest track that we've seen across the entire schedule in 2022. This one only born in 2006, so not a lot of time put into this Iowa Speedway racing-wise, but it definitely still shows somewhat of an age here, and of course you'll see that personality show out across this entire track. It's a 0.875 mile venue, 1.408 kilometers, with 12 to 14 degrees of banking in the turns progressively, 10 degrees in the tri-oval, 4 degrees on the main straightaways. And this track, very interesting. It's very short. It's kind of like a mix of Richmond, also maybe a mix of maybe a Bristol, kind of a little, just a huge mesh of different types of tracks that makes a unique one. And as qualifying now ticks down all the way to 0, we'll see how they're able to handle the green flag. No doubt going to be very tough, but probably going to be worth the wait, worth the watch, especially with the context of the championship. Just before we get to the grid, let's look at who exactly is involved and who exactly is still left. I believe our graphic just went out not too long ago, but the people leading is the names that you've pretty much been accustomed to seeing throughout that first round. Josh Patterson, Garrett White, of course, Garrett White coming off of 2 straight wins, both at the Bristol Motor Speedway and the Talladega Super Speedway 1 week ago, and he starts up front this evening, so he's looking to continue that momentum. The final driver in the 9-car group is Jay Mulder, the Canadian. Everybody below the cut line is only 1 point shy of that cutoff in 4th to go to Homestead, Miami. So tonight is the night where everything will start to shake out. We'll start to see our first premonitions of who's going to be the favorite going into Homestead. We're just going to have to find out, and it all starts right here behind the iRacing official pace truck. It is our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight for the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110. Garrett White is picking up right where he left off. The playoff, or one of the playoff leaders, starts first tonight on pole with a 23.918 to bring us to the green flag. He's not the only super to bring us to green, though, on that front row. Hunter Collier, fellow playoff driver, he'll be on the outside in P2.
Logan Pugh is going to be in that 3rd position. A 23.96 will put him in the top 5, with Connor Havrilla right next to him in that number 20.
Max Horner number 3, the 25 of Ethan Workman, still hungry for that very first win. He's got a good starting spot and a good vantage point from 5th tonight, alongside playoff driver Gino Mero, the winner from Las Vegas earlier this season, looking for his 2nd, looking to overcome that playoff gap.
Josh Patterson, top of the point standing, starting off P7. If he can get a solid top 5, that could definitely help his chances of making it to Homestead. Of course, a win will definitely help their chances at making into the championship 4. Brandon Sampson in the 996 will start in P8.
Back to row number 5, the exit of the top 10. Ryan Martin in the 9, a playoff driver. Same deal for the 44 of Timmy Spatz. Both of them looking for an entrance into the top 4. They round out your top 10 on the grid.
Jake Mativier is going to be in the 11th position, just missing out on that top 11 or on the top 10 position. And Brayson Collins, the league owner in that 5, is going to be starting in P12.
Back to row number 7, you'll find the Sunoco Chevrolet of Shane Fuller in his 57 alongside Terry Mellum, who rounds out your top 14 here. The final drivers in this field, and actually really everybody behind Terry Mellum did not take qualifying time. It'll be Joe Berge, Jay Mulder, Caden Reif, Henry Clappert, and TJ Lair. So it's a full field, or rather not a full field, only about, I'd say, 18, 19 cars. So not a lot of drivers here, Francisco. And it's a stark contrast from 1 week ago, because at Talladega, we had a full field. More than about 35 drivers came out to play at the Super Speedway. And now you winded it down like this. As a playoff driver, whether you're above or below the cut line, how do you treat this race knowing you've got a very short field size?
It sometimes can be a better situation if you're a playoff driver when you get a shorter field at a short track, because that means you don't have such a compact field, guys all over each other, and that could lead to wrecks. With the smaller field size, you might have an increased chance of getting some longer runs, and that could really play into certain drivers' hands and being able to work the car on the old tires. And especially at a track like this, that could really be beneficial to certain people. So we'll just have to see how exactly it plays out. We still have a decent field size, but we'll see exactly where this race takes us. The 26 is going to lead them to the green flag. The pace car already off the racetrack, and the green flag is out, and we're underway from the cornfield.
Not a lot of flexing that your leader, Garrett White, had to do to hold Hunter Collier off. He continues in the race lead out of lap number 1. Hunter Collier had a couple of drivers to fend off, most notably Connor Hervilla. It saw Logan Pugh look to the inside before his car stepped out on the exit of turn 4. But nonetheless, everybody's clean and green. Everybody using the middle line here, coming back to the start-finish line.
The middle line is kind of a defensive tactic because you can really hold off well against those that run the bottom. When you're in the middle, makes it very hard to pass, and you don't let anyone get to your outside and put yourself in that sort of situation. So maybe a little bit of a diamond effect you'll see. But one thing that we'll talk about for a couple of moments throughout the night, turn 2 could be very tricky because the exit, it feels like you can really unwind that wheel and straighten the car a lot early. But if you're not careful, it could catch the wall, and it could really put a dent on your race car and have damage and really put you behind. But you see right there a move by Josh Patterson to the inside, trying to see if he can take, I believe that's for the 6th position. But being on that inside, you're going to see the run that 25 Ohio State Camaro gets on the outside, and he's able to hold off.
That's a big characteristic of this Iowa Speedway, especially in the sim, is the multiple grooves you can use on the track. And as you watch this battle right here, what is for P6 right now on the racetrack, this is a pure example of the many places you can go on entry of the corner and on exit and still be able to maintain pace. Workman still putting this fight up to your playoff points leader, Josh Patterson, in the Live Made Media Toyota Supra. Now Patterson will dive to the inside, will look to clear, and he will officially do so. He now captures P6. He's going to look to now get over Gino Mero and company in front, as Ethan Workman will rally back to the inside and try and move down low as they both go together door to door, get very close, almost about made contact. If you want to find out where your playoff drivers are, the ones running for the championship, just look for those orange banners at the top of the windshield, also with those orange spoilers at the rear of these NASCAR Xfinity Series race cars. You'll notify at least yourself that those other drivers running for this championship. Only 9 are eligible right now for this 2022 title. And so we've got a lot of playoff drivers up at the front being very aggressive, trying to make sure they're part of the 4 that'll be rallying together at Homestead of Miami Speedway. And it looks as though for the moment, not many drivers getting away from each other quite early. Usually by this time, over the first 7 laps, you'd expect a little bit of separation, at least Francisco for the most part, but it looks like everybody rather equal here on pace.
Yeah, and it might be due to the fact that they're all trying to run a similar pace to conserve their tires. We talked about how abrasive this track can be on the tires. It's very bumpy, it eats it up, but in doing so, that's why you might see some guys running single file, not really trying too hard to battle for position, trying to conserve some of the life in the said tires, because we don't know how long of a run we may get. It could go 20 laps, it could just as easily go the whole race, so we're not exactly sure how it'll play out, but you have to put yourself in the best possible spot right now, and especially if you're in the playoffs, you don't want to take a risk and push the car early and really hurt your chances on the long run if we happen to get one by having a really slow car out there with extremely worn tires while everyone else is blowing your doors off. But Patterson, he's on the move. He's not exactly looking really aggressive, but he is showing some pace, and he's starting to put some moves on. He's trying to work his way up in the top 5.
Josh Patterson, of course, doing what he's been doing really all season long, and with the wins that he's captured over here in this WORC Dynamo Designs National Series season, he's done well for himself and leading the playoffs right now. It is a good sign. And also, I think what you said, Francisco, plays back to the fact that we do have such a small field. You don't want to make so many mistakes early. You don't want to over push your car to the point where you're basically just letting everybody go by. You're holding the door open for them, because it's only a 1-point spread if you're below or above that cut line. You don't have a cushion. You don't have a lot of space to have a mistake, to have a bad move here or there. You can't really make those mistakes, because just like you saw right there with Grayson Collins and Jay Mulder, that's an extra point that's taken away if you lose a spot or if something bad happens to you on track, especially with the majority of this field pretty much being those orange banner race cars. Mostly single file through the field. Of course, you can see a separation between the first group. I believe it ends around Timmy Spatz in the 44, who's trying to get around the Ohio State Camaro of Ethan Workman. But pretty much everybody else all have separated. Everybody kind of filing in their own clicks, and Garrett White has been the class of the field so far as at lap 13.
Yeah, these college football team race cars trying to work their way to the front of the field, and a fitting time too, obviously mid-March, and that time of year is mainly reserved for March Madness. So if these college teams are able to work their way to the front, it would definitely be representative of the time of year.
You know what? I think White may be a little bit disappointed that Clemson is not running for the NCAA tournament this year. Ethan Workman very happy that Ohio State is going to be playing this year. I believe they play against Virginia Tech, a 6 seed, versus an 11. I think they play tomorrow night. So I think Ethan will be very happy to see Ohio State come out to play in the NCAA tourney. Garrett White trying to prove, I guess, why Clemson needs some representation on the basketball side here. But nonetheless, I think joking aside, this 26 very quick off the gates and has not let Hunter Collier or anybody really get close enough to make any strikes. And we look at the playoff field, we look at the drivers who were able to point their way in, the drivers who were able to keep themselves in, and of course the ones who are unfortunately eliminated after Talladega just 1 week ago. One of the biggest storylines is this driver right here, Connor Hervilla in the 20. Last week, we didn't even know if he was going to be a part of the top 9 in this round. We thought he was going to be eliminated. We thought the chances were very slim for him to overcome the obstacle at Talladega and be able to continue his championship hunt, but he proved everybody wrong. With the large field size, was able to use that and leverage it to his advantage. Was able to beat Ryan Martin, and in his case, in terms of the point standings, he was able to overcome that deficit that he had. I believe it was more than 20 points out, and he was able to lock himself into the top 9, at least for the moment. So it's been a very good run so far for Connor Hervilla, and I think if you're Hervilla right now in this 20, knowing the experience of Talladega 1 week past, you're gonna like the situation right now sitting in P3.
It was definitely the drive he was looking for and probably wasn't expecting, but he'll take it nonetheless. He's now in the 9 remaining drivers that are still eligible to try and win this championship. But I think the last thing he wants to do is put himself in another hole, and that's what he's trying to avoid to do right now. He's running in the 3rd spot. That's obviously going to do him some good here with the points if they stay as they are. If he's able to come away with a top 3 finish, it seems as though it'll put him at least in the contention for that championship 4 spot with 2 races to go. So it'll at least early on make it seem as though it's on the positive rather than digging himself in a hole. And somebody here to know it's on the positive rather than digging himself in a hole. And somebody here tonight, I'm not exactly sure who, but it's very likely that somebody in this 9-car field is going to leave here in a massive dealt of points.
Of course, they're not going to like that going to a very skillful, needed track at the Nashville Super Speedway. You're going to need a lot of patience. You're going to need a lot of discipline. You're going to need a lot of throttle control and a lot of skill to keep that car together at a track like that, a very hot concrete surface, and one that has been known over the past year, ever since it was reintroduced to NASCAR in 2021, it's been very tough to get a handle of that track. And so if you end up in a deficit, like you said, Francisco, it's not going to be easy for the rest of the round. There's no freebie rounds or races really in this round of 9. You watch this battle here for what is the entrance of the top 5. Logan Pugh holding on to that, but he's kept close to the Ford Mustang just in front of him. That is Gino Merrill, fellow playoff driver and the winner earlier this season at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And of course, Josh Patterson, who took the checkered flag at Volusia to end the regular season not too long ago, has yet to find victory lane since, but has still been very consistent. Pugh, one of those drivers who's been up and down. I believe he was one of the playoff drivers just before getting eliminated in that first round of 14, so could not see his playoff hopes go past Talladega. But Logan Pugh definitely doing good here tonight. I think he's really the only non-playoff driver within this top 6.
He is. You see orange everywhere around that 01, and right now he is definitely trying to see if he can play the spoiler card, because from here on out, oh, and look, the 71 makes a mistake, and Havrilla goes into the wall.
Havrilla into the outside wall. It's going to check up everybody down low. It's going to give the opportunity for Logan Pugh and Josh Patterson to swish by. And I believe Havrilla will keep his namesake for now by just a little bit. Gino Merrill going to hold on door to door with the Supra down low. That's a very dangerous place to be in, especially in a pack like that, Francisco. You do not want to push, understeer, get up into the outside wall, and then have to severely steer left to get out of it, because you can get into other drivers. And luckily, Havrilla kept it calm. Has some damage on the right front that may affect his handling significantly, but at least he did not end up wadding up a bunch of cars, including himself.
That's very true, Kenneth. And we haven't really talked about this in a while. These Xfinity cars, they have the composite bodies, but the thing about them, and look, the 71's gonna get loose and into him again.
Havrilla's going to go to the wall once more. Everybody's going to scatter around. Merrill had pushed up, thinking I believe he was clear. Havrilla kept his foot in it, kept his nose there, deservingly so. And once again, Connor Havrilla ends up in the outside safer barrier, and his night just went from very good to very bad very quickly over the first 25 laps of this race. He's now buried within the top 10, and guess what? More playoff drivers behind him, Timmy Spatz and Jay Mulder.
He is not going to be happy about that at all. Those two incidents were not of his fault, not of his doing, and it put him in the back of the field. But I was going to say, Kenneth, before that second contact, was with these Xfinity cars, they may have composite bodies, but on iRacing, they definitely can't take that much of a hit. A little bit of damage on these race cars, and it's very sensitive, and it could really cause you to lose some pace. So that 20, he has some damage on his race car. As this run continues, he may slow down even more, especially with the damage being on the right front. That's really going to hurt the right front tire, the suspension a little bit. He'll be fine. He'll be able to keep general pace, but he's not going to be as fast as those around him. He's going to continue to lose time and lose positions, and you can imagine he could be definitely very upset at that 71.
Yeah, definitely not happy whatsoever, and he's going to get even more lost time by the time everybody comes on pit road, because we've got no faster pairs in this WORC Dynamo Designs National Series. So when you come down pit road, if you got any sort of damage on your race car, you can obviously get optional and take it later. You can choose when to get the optional repair, which it looks to be the case here for Havrilla. But if he wants to have it at least somewhat of a pristine race car, similar to what he brought to the track at the green flag, he's going to need to pay that time on pit road, and that in turn is going to lose him more spots, and in that case is going to lose him more points on the fight for the top 4. So a big separation, a big gap between your leader, Garrett White, second place now, Logan Pugh. It's a total of 2.8 seconds and growing. Last time by, Garrett White was almost a full 0.2 faster than the Ford Mustang you're looking at on the center of your screen. Josh Patterson not too far behind, a battle for P2, but nonetheless, especially after the incident there, Francisco, everybody decided to move out of the way. Everybody checked up, and as Garrett White saw it in the rearview mirror, he's just kind of looking at himself and go, huh, okay, I'll just keep going. No yellow, it's my race.
As long as they keep that and don't wreck, and it's all from P2, I think Garrett White will take that. That'll just grow his lead and make it less for someone to find some pace and run up there and catch him, especially as we're approaching 40 laps into this run sooner or later. And it's impressive what we're seeing. He's been able to put a pretty decently sized lead for the time we've had in this race, and nobody else has been able to pull away from the rest of the field. They're kind of still generally contested with one another in the middle portion of the pack. And second place, third place, they're having a battle. You see right there just a line of cars in front of Brandon Sampson through this top 10. So really the only separation that we've seen at the front of the field is from your race leader up down to P2. We haven't really seen it through the rest of the field.
It looks like a lot of drivers just cannot get away, and as you watch there, Hunter Collier just in front of him, he's seeing a side-by-side battle. Here comes Josh Patterson to the inside for second. Logan Pugh trying to hold up on the 14 degrees of banking all the way near the outside safer barrier. He's going to stay there. Patterson will dive deep down low into turn 1 and 2. Pugh will keep his foot in it and stay alongside. So as they continue to fight for second, Garrett White smiling ear to ear, knowing they're losing time on the racetrack and not catching up to him. But I believe it's all going to end up closing in at some point, Francisco, because yellow obviously could come out. But you also pose the possibility of green flag pit stops, and that means your leader, Garrett White, he's not an exception. He needs to come down pit road like everybody else if he wants to make it to the end of this deal.
That's a very true statement. If a caution flag comes out, that neutralizes everybody, and you see both of them sliding there off turn 2. Patterson able to get clear. That puts the lead now for White at just over 4 seconds, so he has been able to grow it by over a second while they were battling for P2 on the racetrack. But if we go green and we end up having to do green flag pit stops, that's a completely different conversation, because White, with the lead he has, he can wait a couple of laps after the rest of the field pits and still either come out with the lead or wait even longer, maybe lose a position or two, but use the fresh tires to get by everybody once again and really ensure that no one can run him down at that point. The other thing that you can hope for if you're the rest of the field is that he makes a mistake either entering or exit, maybe a little a speeding penalty. But Garrett White has not exactly been a man of mistakes this season, so that's not something you really want to rely on if for your hopes of winning the race.
Of course, that is true. As you watch Ethan Workman work into the top 5, and was a little bit wrong. There are 68 teams after all in March Madness, so it can be easy to get confused with similar-looking color designs. Ohio State playing Loyola Chicago, and I know the experience of losing to that team, playing that team 2018, if you can recall, University of Miami played them in the first round of the tournament, and it resulted in a backboard buzzer beater by Loyola Chicago. That was the first of many wins to take them to the Final Four. So I think Ethan Workman, I'm going to give my prayers to his team once they face off against the Ramblers, because it is not fun when you're within 1 or 2 points with that team going into the fourth quarter, or rather the end of the second half.
And you know, while we're on the topic of the college teams, you know, of your race leader, obviously representing the Clemson University, the quarterback of my Jacksonville Jaguars came out of Clemson University. Trevor Lawrence, currently playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He didn't have the rookie season I was hoping for the organization, but hopefully in this second season it goes much better. And Clemson, they've had a long history of really good quarterbacks. They've also had their moments in the basketball with the NCAA. I'm not sure if they've been able to really mount a charge in recent years in the basketball tournament, but if they're able to get a good recruitment going forward, they also may be able to challenge going forward.
Yeah, Clemson, a very big football school. So is Ohio State. I mean, don't get me wrong. Ohio State is in the NCAA tournament for men's basketball this year, but a lot of their success comes from their college football program. Same deal for Clemson and their university over there. So, I mean, don't slouch on their football camps. They can really give you a beating, if you will, if you play against any one of those teams. They've got a lot of great talent on their fellow compatriots, their fellow groups there in that program for each of the universities. And we talk about universities, their expansion into esports within the past couple of years. I know it's different from football or basketball or maybe even volleyball, swimming, any real sport. You think about how colleges have been able to expand into the world of sim racing. Not only that, but of course games like Rocket League, you think of League of Legends, Fortnite, so many games that they've been able to implement. And obviously, one of the bigger stories within the past couple months, the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, where, let's say, if you're from an Ohio State, you're from a Clemson, you sim race on the iRacing platform, you can compete for $50,000 in scholarships and represent your school along the way. So, I mean, it is cool to see the college representation and to obviously see both of the routes, especially with them entering the sim racing world and with recent memory. Very cool to see as Garrett White now gets around the first car that will be a lap down here, I believe. It is Brayson Collins, one of the playoff drivers, so that is not a good sight if you're the driver of the 5. And Collins has had some ups and downs, Francisco, throughout this season. but has found some concerns over the past couple of races, specifically in that round of 14. And it looks like the concerns continue here, as he's the only driver right now one lap down apart from Terry Mellum, even though Mellum is now DNF from the race in the garage.
And right now, the troubles with the 5 could be some very worn tires. Sometimes pushing it on the early portion of the run could result in that right front really going away. And at this time in the run, you're just that much slower than the rest of the field, because really no one else is that close to being around him. Because you look back here after Josh Patterson, and the field is still relatively close to each other. Once you get further back, it gets really spread out. And there's still guys that are half a lap down before you get to Brayson Collins. And Garrett White still has a long ways to go before he finds the next lap car. So that's definitely a little bit of an issue with the tires on that 5. That's what's causing to be this far down the order. But we're looking here inside the top 5, and not a lot of moves being made, but not a lot of separation. And that's definitely been something that I've never seen here at Iowa, where you get this far into the run and the guys from P2 all the way down to P6 can't really get away from one another.
Just shows you how equal these drivers are on pace and skill. One of the biggest moves, though, apart from, I'd say, Josh Patterson, who now occupies the second place position. How about the Canadian Jay Mulder? He's all the way dead last in this round of 9. And yes, before you say anything, he is only 1 point below the cut line, so it's not like the gap is significant. But to come into this race last in the playoff standings and to put this up, even with the qualifying effort that he had a little bit further back in the midfield, had to fight through the hornet's nest. Now with all these cars, like I said, Francisco, that haven't been able to get away from each other, Mulder is now able to strike in a place where it could work to his advantage in very specific ways, most notably for that playoff spot. There's Joe Berge just in front of him, the winner at Auto Club a little bit earlier in this campaign. He is not running for the title, but Hunter Collier is up in front. Same deal for Josh Patterson, who's also in the front. So there are some points to be fought for. Of course, even with the non-playoff drivers occupying this top 5, they do technically occupy points. So if you get by one of them, you gain a point. If you lose a spot to them, you do lose a point as well. So there is a lot of points playing to be had here if you're Jay Mulder, and it could work out to your favor, especially in this long run. If we get green flag pit stops, he can at least keep himself there, even if he doesn't get by him.
Yeah, and when you think about it as well, Connor Havrilla, he's down the order. So is the 9 of Ryan Martin. He's also down the order. So you take those two into account, and that's a situation where you realize where, okay, some of these guys that are contending, they're kind of down the order. So you can take this as an opportunity to really move up. And Gino Mero as well. We saw him up front, and he got into Havrilla just a handful of times there, getting into the outside wall, went to 20. The 71 only had the car contact, so he was kind of able to hold off a little bit better on that front. And he's right now not exactly having the run he's been hoping for. He is in 9th and could be under attack to get put back in the 10th position. And everybody else that he's battling is up inside that top 7 or so. So a bit of a caution or a little bit of a break could help that 71, and the 05 behind him with just a big moment there off of turn 4, almost making contact. Kind of got loose and made sure that he didn't get into the 71 and were able to stay green.
That's the 05 of Jake Mativier, driver making his debut here in the WORC Dynamo Designs National Series. And you and I, Francisco, talked about this driver, and I recognize this name specifically from the Xbox days. Of course, Forza Motorsport 6, Forza Motorsport 7, when they implemented the NASCAR Cup Series cars into that game for the very first time back in 2016. The expansion of leagues such as NASCAR, which unfortunately I don't believe is in operation anymore as of 2022. But Mativier, one of the OG names, as we would call him, from those Xbox days in the NASCAR Cup Series and in other leagues throughout that specific game on the Microsoft service. So good to see Mativier join on the iRacing crew and to get into the WORC spirit as he makes his debut, and he currently runs back in that 10th position. So at least if he continues where he is, it could be a solid top 10 in the midst of a lot of these drivers who have been here all season long. Right now you're seeing just a full separation gap between many of the drivers. Of course, 4th on back, not too far away from striking distance within each other. So if anyone makes a drastic mistake, somebody else will be there for the taking. But so far, it's been all Garrett White, Francisco. And to think about the path that he's taken, the consistent finishes, the close calls, how close he's been to race wins, race in, race out. And we were like, when was he going to get this win? He finally got it at Bristol and doubled down in Talladega. And tonight, as we approach halfway in this Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110, White is looking like he is going to come on a hot streak, and this is the right time to do it.
Yeah, we're on the halfway lap right now, and he has just over a 5-second lead. And I think Patterson has come down pit road. There you see Collins exiting pit road, but it looks as though green flag pit stops are starting to happen. And now you saw right there, Garrett White's going to make his way on the pit road. And an interesting time too, Kenneth. I'm not sure if this is guys going to the end of their fuel run. I don't exactly know how the fuel window works in this particular series. But if these guys are close to the end, they have to be aware of when they're pitting, because this is right in the middle. If you can't go the rest of the way, that could be a major problem.
Right now, drivers going around 56 laps on their stint. Here's your leader, now under fire from a playoff driver, Jay Mulder, but Mulder's immediately going to duck down low. His motives is to go to pit road here this time. And so this pretty much begins, starting with Patterson, the run for everybody to come in on pit road. Obviously, make sure they can get the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and the fuel to go along with it. There's your former leader, Garrett White, now out of the pit lane. There's Hunter Collier, Ethan Workman, Logan Pugh, now getting out. Hunter Collier now dropping off of the jacks. Timmy Spatz on his way out as well. So everybody pretty much making this call consistently around the entire field, coming for service. And this should be a call that can get them at least close to the end of this race. I'm not sure whether it is confirmed or short, but nonetheless, I mean, they need this pit stop anyway. And maybe a yellow could also help their case as well. So Joe Berge in the lead. He's got 58 laps on his stint. We'll see when he comes down. Top 3 haven't come in yet.
Yeah, everybody who pit after 55 is going to make it. The only reason I said what I said is because I'm not sure exactly if they were close to running out, and that's why they were coming in. I'm not sure that situation specifically, but if you have at least a gallon or so left by the time halfway came around, you were probably going to come down pit road right then and there. Ensure the pit stop right at halfway. You can get to the end and just go the rest of the distance. Berge, though, still has yet to come down pit road and is not going to do so this time by. So he's going to complete at least 60 laps on this fuel run. Fuel won't be an issue for him for the rest of this race. You see Ryan Martin, he's staying out as well. Henry Clapper, and there you see the difference of new tires and old tires. Brayson Collins had to check up to avoid getting into the back of the 34 in the center of the corner. That could have been very catastrophic there, and allows the 71 of Morrow to go to the inside.
There are a bunch of drivers now trying to unlap themselves, and it all starts with Garrett White, who still needs to get around the leader. Of course, Joe Berge, Ryan Martin, and Henry Clapper, the drivers yet to pit, but this is going to mean a lot because these are positions for the taking. Timmy Spatz, who quite frankly wasn't in this group on the lead lap. He was on the lead lap, but just a little bit further back, wasn't in contention for these types of positions. He's now in that striking opportunity, so that is good news there for the 44, who pits at the right time, finds the best place to get out on fresh rubber, and now he's got a playoff driver just in front. That could mean big-time rewards if he can get by him and make something happen on that regard. We have the third car in this group, or rather the second car of the top 3 that did not pit, Ryan Martin. He's now in for service, so that leaves Clapper in the 34 and Joe Berge in the 83 now left to come in, and we're still waiting that chance there. The look down pit road as Josh Patterson will unlap himself. Same deal for Garrett White, so no doubt Garrett White here will assume the race lead by the time the 83 and the 34 come in, but it's not a big gap. It's only about 1.2 seconds between these two, so I'd say, Francisco, right out of the gates on this pit road cycle, the battle is starting to heat up.
Patterson was able to cut in going into pit road, and you have to ask yourself, was it a good entry by Patterson or a conservative entry by the 26 of White? Either way, the gap has been closed in, and now Patterson, with clean traffic ahead of him, clean racetrack, may be able to keep pace with the 26 of White, and we'll see what he does in the long run. Race leader Joe Berge is now in on pit road. That leaves the 34 of Henry Clapper, who's going to stay out for at least another lap on the racetrack. He'll take the lead away from the 83, and these guys being able to go this long, Kenneth, ensures the fact that everybody that's come down pit road can make it to the end of the race with no problems whatsoever, because if they're able to go this long on their opening run, everybody who pitted at halfway is at least 10 laps to the good. So fuel, not a concern for anybody at this point.
It's a good thing for the whole field. Obviously, cautions can shake up the strategy game, especially when it comes down to the rubber on the shoes of these race cars. But if it stays green from here to the end, I think it's good to know. Brings a lot of solace to the field that they won't have to worry about fuel anymore. They've faced a lot of the problems there. When you stay green for a while and cautions come out in weird ways, especially in longer races, you can end up in a situation where you're just constantly worrying about the fuel. And you posed a good question, Francisco, whether Garrett White was either too conservative in the lane or whether Josh Patterson was just very good, very aggressive. It turns out it may have just been a conservative approach for the former and now current race leader as he cycles through and as Henry Clappert comes down for service. Garrett White had a 41.1 total time lot on pit road, from entrance to pit road all the way to the exit where he left off in that first pit box. Meanwhile, the 0-2 of Josh Patterson, his Toyota Supra, went 40.7 seconds, almost about a full second or about half a second difference between Patterson and White on pit road from entry to exit, while they both had the same exact time in their pit stall, 14.5 seconds for both of them respectively for 4 tires and fuel. So I think right there's your answer, Francisco. Patterson better on the entrance and exit of pit road. Looks like White just wanted to make sure he wasn't pushing too hard and tried to prevent any sort of crucial mistakes.
And 2 notes on that, Kenneth. That's, of course, just from line to line, because we know that these guys sometimes have they slow down much earlier. You saw Jay Mulder's entry when he came into pit road. He went into the flat going into turn 3. Other guys, you'll stay on the banking, like the 26 here will follow him, and they'll start slowing down right there in the center, turn down and have an aggressive entry to maximize their speed on the racetrack. So a difference of that could cause a second or 2 on the racetrack that may not get tracked, but you'll see visually like we have seen with the top 2. The good thing for White is that he's been able to pull away a little bit since they've exited pit road, and oh, we got a car on the wall.
That is Logan Depew in the 0-1. You right on board with his rear bumper, the Ford Mustang trying to hold off. This is for 4th place. Hunter Collier, fellow playoff driver. They've been at it for a little while here after the first round of green flag pit stops. And with that mistake in 1 and 2, Hunter Collier is going to nose ahead for the moment. It looks like Pew will play some good defense here and clear back for 4th. But Hunter Collier had the chance there to take position away. That could have been an extra point added to his cushion. And we talked about it at the opening portion of this race. The different lines you could take at this Iowa Speedway. You can go from the bottom of the racetrack to the top. You can choose any lane in between and still be relatively fast, but there may be certain parts of the track you want to avoid. One of them is the very top in 1 and 2 because there's a really big bump in the middle of the corner as the 0-1 will actually bravely take it up there. We'll follow just a little bit, but right there, you saw the car oscillate just a little bit on the rear end. That's the big bump that we're talking about, and if you hit it in the wrong way, in the wrong place, your car could go straight up into the safer barrier and hit the wall just like Logan Pugh's car just did.
That bump right there kind of reminds you in a way if you ever have driven the Legacy Pocono Raceway in turn 1, there's a bump in turn 1, you hit that the wrong way and it's going to do the exact same thing. So anytime you hit a bump, and right there he hit it the right way, he was turning down on the racetrack so it didn't send him up, and it could really make him some good use there off the corner. 3 and 4, fortunately for these guys, is a little bit smoother, and you're able to really go all the way up the racetrack, so it allows for more options, more variety of trying to figure out how to go through that corner and make a pass. The groove kind of narrows when you go into 1 and 2 because of those bumps on the upper 2 lanes. So it makes things interesting when you're trying to make a pass in 1 and 2, but then it gets interesting for a different reason in 3 and 4. And that's part of the great racing we see here at Iowa, just a constant change of what you want to do. And on top of that, you always have to stay on top of the car with the tires wearing. It is action everywhere.
You can't take your eyes off of this racetrack or else you could make a big mistake, could send you into some trouble. As we're closing in on the final stretch of laps here in this Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110, why don't we turn things up here in the KBueno Racing Network and crank it up from the cornfields of Iowa. You heard all the sounds, saw the sights here from the virtual Iowa Speedways. The night has fallen. We are now under the lights here in Newton, Iowa. So saw a great battle for P4 that has just simmered out just a bit. Jay Mulder had made his way by Logan Pugh and Hunter Collier, but not without a fight. Both of them came back at him. They went side by side for a couple laps on tap, and looks like now Hunter Collier has found a way underneath Logan Pugh. Tried to make this pass, remember, a little while earlier when Pugh hit the outside wall. But as for the moment, it seems as though everything calms down between them. Jay Mulder is able to overcome, and now he's going to try and look forward ahead on his windshield where he'll see the 25, Ethan Workman, who now sits in third. All of them, though, trying to catch the Clemson Toyota Supra of Garrett A. White, who leads lap 81 here in this Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110. We'll take a moment and step aside, but you won't miss a thing here on the KBueno Racing Network. The 26 of White from the pole has led every single lap.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
We've been waiting for this moment. Generations of innovation all coming together in one place. A pedigree of more than 70 years of NASCAR Cup Series history, from the past to the present, from Petty to Earnhardt to Elliott. Today, there's no more waiting. The future of NASCAR is now. Drive the next-gen cars today on iRacing and step into the next generation of racing.
Welcome back to the virtual Iowa Speedway for the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110 right here live on the KBueno Racing Network. Kenneth Bueno, Francisco Bacchiao along with you for the ride, and we have an interesting development from the driver currently sitting 11th. Hunter Collier, playoff driver, was up in the top 5 fighting for position, and then something happened. We're not sure exactly what, but it happened on lap 82 of 110 as we're closing in on the final 20 laps here for the virtual Iowa Speedway. And there's our answer, Francisco. We were thinking maybe he spun it by himself, maybe he saved the race car, maybe he spun in a certain place. And here it is. Slight tap from Logan Pugh. Collier goes for a slide into the grass, and somehow no caution came out from that.
And no caution came out through iRacing because that was in the infield, but admins did not deem that a yellow, possibly because it was just him. We'll get one last look at it here, and you see, tries to slide up in front of the 01 to get the position. The 01 wasn't having it, and around goes the 98 through the grass, and was able to slide into the forwards position and able to get going rather quickly, and is right now running in the 11th spot. So not exactly the kind of run that he was looking to have at the very end of the race. And in his mirror is going to be the race leader Garrett White, who's put on 5 seconds over Josh Patterson and has almost 12 seconds back to Jay Mulder in third. So no worries for the 26. If this stays green to the end of the race, it's his to lose.
And I was just about to say that the problems there for Hunter Collier, I was about to mention how big of a hit that was going to be in the point standings, and it's going to be an even bigger hit if this leader, Garrett White, gets around him, puts him a lap down, because that means that, let's say if a caution comes out near the end of this race, may get the wave round, but he's going to have to start the tail end of the longest line, and that's going to really put him in a bad spot. And to make up the amount of positions that he lost in a certain amount of time that is left in this race coming to the final, I'd say 12 laps here from the Iowa Speedway, it's going to be a large hurdle that Hunter Collier has to overcome. And you mentioned, Francisco, the possibility that a driver could end up in a pitfall in the point standings out of tonight. And that may be one of the drivers, unfortunately, the 98, going to have to pick things up by the time we get to Nashville Super Speedway next week.
And you know, while we're on the topic of Nashville Super Speedway next week, and Nashville, it's a concrete racetrack. It's 1.3 miles, and it's similar to this track in the sense that it's flat like this. It's obviously larger, but it doesn't drive too differently because of the flat nature of the racetrack. You have to really check it up. You're more oriented to the bottom, but look, oh my God, what a slide there by Jay Mulder off of turn 2, able to keep it straight. But Nashville next week, Kenneth, is going to be very interesting because the flat nature of the racetrack. It's a high-speed racetrack. You're going to be going fast into turn 1 and turn 3, and you have to really slow it down into the corners. The outside can work, and you could really use it to maintain position, much like you can here, but otherwise you're probably going to be on that bottom line. So Nashville Super Speedway next week, very interesting race that awaits us.
I think you could also add it to the tracks that are very unique in its own way, not necessarily a pure cookie cutter track, not necessarily a pure short track. It's kind of a mix in between. Iowa tonight being one of them, of course Darlington being the other that we experienced for the first race in the round of 14. Then of course 1 week from tonight, Nashville Super Speedway, which is a unique track in its own right. It's not necessarily an intermediate, not necessarily a short track. It's kind of in the sweet spot in between, and that's what makes a track like Nashville and Iowa and Darlington so special in this series. And it kind of makes it more entertaining because you want to see how these drivers at their top level handle those types of tracks, handle those types of random in-between racetracks that you don't often see on the calendar. Here's what I feared. Hunter Collier getting lapped by the race leader as we approach 10 laps to go here in the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110. And Garrett White is just looking to cap off what's been a dominant race thus far. Apart from green flag pit stops, he's pretty much led every single lap. He's been out front by a solid margin. Nobody else has really put the fight to him. The only close fight was between him and Josh Patterson directly after pit stops, where they were around a second between each other. But other than that, Garrett White has been on a really good streak right now. And in these final laps, it's just looking to minimize mistakes, get around lap traffic, handle your business, and it'll be the 3rd win in the row for this 26 Toyota Supra.
And right there, you were able to just really put it into context. It was very difficult to describe just how good of a performance the 26 has been able to put on today. And nothing that we can come up with will really put it into words and be accurate as to what we've seen out of him. He's just been purely dominant here today. and was able to drive away from the field immediately and never really faced a serious challenge. Nobody's really been able to get close to him apart from as soon as the 02 exited pit road, but immediately the 26 squashed that battle and was able to drive away once more. Jay Mulder's not going to catch up to Patterson either, so the top three for the most part is looking settled. Joe Berge now catching up to the 25 of Ethan Workman. They're going to try and battle for this position late in the race.
And Berge is really caught up to Workman, and we saw Mulder battling with this 25 not too long ago. Mulder was able to get by, and Berge looks to be the next one on the hunt to take what is P4 away. Workman going to hopefully capture the top 5 by the end of this deal. We'll keep an eye on what Berge is able to do, whether he's able to make a final charge here. But for the moment, he has not made the move to the inside. He's kept in, tucked in, right behind that number 25 Chevrolet Camaro. Garrett White approaches 5 laps to go for the virtual Iowa Speedway, and in the entirety of the playoff grid, out of this round of 9, only 3 drivers have race wins this season. One of them, of course, being this 26, his first one came in Bristol 2 weeks ago. Then you look at the other driver who has a win this season in the playoffs, Josh Patterson, who picked up the win at Volusia in the regular season. And then you have to go all the way back to 7 in Gino Merrill, who got the win at Las Vegas. Apart from that, really nobody else has been to victory lane. And nobody in this season, non-playoff or playoff, have won 3 in a row. The only time we saw that happen in consecutive fashion was with Christian Visconti in race 2, race number 3, and with Garrett White at Bristol and Talladega. And now he's looking to become the first driver in this 2022 season to get 3 wins in a row. He will approach the final 2 laps here from the virtual Iowa Speedway to cap off what's been an excessively dominant race. Couple of lap cars in front of him, but White only a couple of miles left to victory.
Yeah, Garrett White, he doesn't even have to go near those cars. He can stay about this far back from them and still have no room to worry. 7 seconds on Josh Patterson. And you mentioned it there, Kenneth. He's trying to go for the hat trick, hoping to see if he can capture a 3rd win in a row, and trying to really put together what is a potential championship season. It is the round of 9. We're coming to the white flag, and off of 4, he's going to take it. Garrett White trying to win his 3rd straight race and punch his ticket to the championship at Homestead.
White flag in the air for Garrett White. And it's been an outstanding race from this 26. And countless times throughout the season, we said, when was he going to get the win? When was he not going to come up short? When was he not going to be the bridesmaid? He finished that off at Bristol, did it again at Talladega, and off turn 4, Garrett White goes 3 in a row in the WORC Dynamo Designs National Series in the playoffs and takes the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110.
Very dominant effort by Garrett White. I'm not sure what the actual number is going to say, but he definitely led close to 100 laps in this race, if not right on the dot of 100. That's just how dominant he was tonight. He was out front whenever the pit strategy was the same. But once it was all cycled out, that's the only time he was not leading, when you had guys staying out. Otherwise, he was leading the race. And you see it right there. 100 laps on the dot. He led all but 10. Garrett White, 3 in a row. He's going to be competing for a championship.
What an unbelievable stretch of racing it's been for this 26. And talking to him in the interviews, when he finishes 2nd, he finishes 3rd, in the context of this season, you can tell he wanted to win. He wanted to get to victory lane. He wanted to show to the field that he can do things like this, dominate races, and finish them off. And there were so many times where we questioned whether that was going to happen this season. But the answer came to us the last great Coliseum, and this is how the answer has continued to unfold. 3 in a row for this Clemson 26. As he burns it down from Iowa. That was Ethan Workman, the other driver to give celebrations and congratulations to the 26. Workman ends up finishing in P4. With that, we'll take a look at your full field rundown. We'll see exactly where every single driver finished at the end of 110 green flag laps. No cautions. We went flag to flag from start to very finish. Garrett White goes 3 in a row. We'll talk to the 26 in victory lane in just a couple of moments. Josh Patterson continues his consistent playoff run. He's not going to lose any points. He's not going to lose any sleep over Iowa. Coming next week at Nashville Super Speedway. He'll follow through tonight in the running order in 2nd. Jay Mulder from 16th to 3rd. I believe he's the biggest mover all race, if I'm not wrong, tonight. That 51 definitely doing a good job to ensure that he can overcome the 1-point playoff gap that started here tonight after pretty much being dead last in the round of 9. Ethan Workman, who celebrated with your winner, the 25, the Ohio State car, comes home in P4. Joe Berge, the Auto Club winner from earlier this season, also had a very silent but very deadly run. Very good for this 83, finishes in 5th. Timmy Spatz, playoff driver, was kind of up and down on the grid for a couple of moments, but he ends up in 6th. Gino Mero, fellow playoff driver behind, he is 7th. Logan Pugh, who tagged the wall a little bit fighting with Hunter Collier a little bit earlier on in this race, he comes home 8th at the end of it all. Brandon Sampson in the 996 also has a relatively quiet run. Didn't talk about him all too much. He is 9th, and Ryan Martin in the 9 car finalizes your top 10.
Hunter Collier, who you mentioned, went around there at near the end of the race. No caution came out. Finishes in 11th, 1 lap down. Unfortunately, not able to have a better finish for his sake. TJ Lure able to finish in the 12th position, 1 lap down. Caden Rife is finishing in the 13th position, with Henry Clapper on that alternate strategy not really able to make anything out of it in the 14th position. Connor Havila got into the wall twice at the hands of the 71, is going to finish down in 15th, unable to recover from that. Shane Fuller down in 16th in the 57. Brayson Collins, the league owner, will finish in 17th. Jake Mativier will finish in the 18th position, 3 laps down. And Terry Mellum, who I believe went out early in this one, is going to be in the 19th and final position on the racetrack.
Also to note, the 05, Jake Mativier had a speeding penalty, I believe, on the first round of green flag pit stops, really the only round of green flag pit stops that we had in this event. So unfortunately for Mativier, his debut run, who started off very strong, and does not end up in the way he wanted it to, but hopefully we get to see him make more starts in this series and hopefully be able to do a better job, maybe get some top 10s and maybe even play spoiler and win a race. But we'll talk to the winner here tonight from Iowa, the winner of the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110, and the winner for the 3rd time in a row this season, Garrett White in the 26. We're with him in victory lane. Garrett, when this season started, did you have any idea that in this scenario, in this context, at this point in the playoffs, that you would build up a run like this, win at Bristol, and not stop 3 in a row for you here? What a run it's been.
Oh, yeah. It's been amazing, man. Nothing really to say. It was just a good race for us. Stayed out front most of the race. And Josh pitted a lap before me. And I knew the fresh tires would be a big advantage, so I had to come in right after he did. But after that, it was just smooth sailing. It's just the run we have is just crazy. Looking forward to keeping it on and going into Homestead.
Of course, a lot of momentum, and we'll talk about the next couple of races that follow here tonight from Iowa. But I mean, you said it. You put it onto the field. You didn't really have a lot of challenges around you. It looked like by the time you stayed out front, by the time you got into your rhythm, nobody could catch you. How was it to maintain not only the patience that you have to have around this Iowa Speedway, but to keep up the consistent speed, even with the obstacle that many face in the middle of this race with green flag pit stops?
Yeah. The main thing was just watching your rear tires. As the run went on, you really got loose up off the corner, and maintaining those cool temperatures of them, I think that really was the key to the race. So, yeah, that was pretty fun.
And no doubt it was fun. You led 100 laps out of the 110, so I think that definitely signals fun for you. And starting from Bristol, of course, that win alone, when we talked to you and we had our final thoughts on that broadcast, it seemed as though that was going to be what you needed to overcome, some of the points differences between you and guys like Josh Patterson and others in the playoffs. And that felt like that was enough to keep you over the hump to get into the round of 9 and maybe to help you transition into the championship 4. But then you doubled down in Talladega, and then you do so again at the beginning of this round at Iowa. What is next here for Garrett White? What's next in Nashville and Charlotte to ensure that you'll be at Homestead in a couple of weeks?
Obviously, when you win your first race of the season, all the pressure's off. That's kind of the big talking point. If you make it to the round of 4 and you don't have a win, you're like, oh, should that guy be there or not? But once we won Bristol, all the weight lifted, and I think the momentum carried forward. And then now looking forward to the final 3 races of the season, we have all the momentum. We just need to keep it up.
There's a lot of positives around the Garrett A. White camp, no doubt about it. And this 3rd win in a row, you're the first driver in this season to do so Of course, I mentioned last week you were the first driver to go 2 in a row since Christian Visconti. Now you're in a league of your own, 3 in a row. Not done in this season until now. Garrett, before we let you go, here from the virtual Iowa Speedway, is there anybody you just want to thank for making this run and this win possible?
Oh, yeah. I'd like to thank my team, Whiteout Sim Racing. Obviously, we sponsored the race tonight, so it's really cool to get a win for them. And let's just carry the momentum forward. Thanks, guys.
You know what? May serve as a hometown win. Whiteout Sim Racing on the title sponsor. Got to do it right, and you do so. Checkered flag number 3 on the year. Of course, on behalf of our team, Garrett, want to congratulate you on this W here from the cornfields of Iowa. Want to wish you the best of luck moving forward into Nashville Superspeedway and the rest of the round of 9 in the next couple weeks.
Yep, appreciate it.
Garrett White goes 3 in a row. Has not lost since Bristol not too long ago. The 26 ends up victorious once again to begin the round of 9. We'll head off to P number 2. It is a strong run out of the O2 of Josh Patterson, who's currently on pit road with our very own Francisco Bacallao.
It's been a while since I've had this conversation with you, Josh, and you entered at the top of the point standings. It was a solid night from you. You were able to come away in P2. What were the takeaways you were able to get from this race?
Sorry. I don't know. Kind of played out, well, not like I expected. I expected at least a couple cautions. I don't know. I think we just needed a little more tonight. I think if I would have been able to qualify better, we would have been better. But, excuse me. I don't know. Just felt like I was chasing Garrett all night. The main thing I learned from this race is that Garrett's going to be probably the favorite to win the championship. So, it's really just watching him, seeing how good he's going to do. I don't know. But, yeah, it's cool seeing him, really strong. But, I think tonight was good for me as well with the P2.
Yeah, you had a strong P2 effort despite the qualifying mistake that you claim to have there. You're in a good position with the points. We're going into Nashville next week. How do you feel about your odds at the Nashville race itself and your playoff situation going into Nashville?
I don't think I've ever actually raced on Nashville. I know I own it. I might have raced like one time when it came out, so it's been a very long time. So I'll have to go get some practice laps in, more than I did tonight. And honestly, for the Final Four, I think I'm kind of a shoo-in. It's going to be me. It's probably going to be Garrett as well. I don't know who the other two are, so I'm kind of curious about that. But I feel like me and Garrett have the biggest shot to make it. So, I think just as long as I keep finishing, decently, with the points gap I now have, it should be good to make the Final Four. I feel like these playoffs for me have been strong. So, as I've had momentum, and as long as I can keep that up, I think a Final Four shot is pretty likely.
With results like this, it's definitely possible there, Josh. And a lot of people definitely have helped you get to this point. A lot of team members. We'll give you the floor so you can give the shout outs to those people and sponsors to help make this all happen.
I got to thank everybody at Dynamo Racing, powered by Limeade Media, and Tyson Gifford for partnering up with me to create this team. Got to thank Dynamo Designs, Limeade Media, Patriot Clutches, Vulture Racing Engines, Belfour Property Restorations, Keystone Corner, EVC Automotive. Got to thank 704 Sports Update. Got to thank you guys for broadcasting tonight. Brayson for running the league and helping me run it with him. Congratulate Garrett on getting the win tonight. He had a really good pace. And I got to thank everybody for coming out on track and giving us a great race.
Appreciate you for taking the time with us, Josh. I always enjoy when I get to interview you, and we wish you luck at Lebanon, Tennessee next week.
Yep, thanks a lot, Francisco.
That is Josh Patterson, who comes home in P2. You obviously heard the words. If he keeps the runs like this, he's going to be Championship 4 eligible in no time. We'll take it off to third place, where we'll talk to, I believe, the biggest mover all night long, Jay Mulder in the 51, who started 16th tonight and goes plus 13 all the way to the end. Caps off your top 3 here for the virtual Iowa Speedway. So, Mulder, I guess this is a good thing, because out of the top 3, all 3 of you are playoff drivers running for the championship, but you were in a very interesting predicament. You were last, 9th in this round of 9, entering after Talladega. What was the motive going into this race, and how does it feel knowing that you've, I believe, accomplished what you were looking for?
Yeah, I mean, for sure tonight I was I mean, I wasn't even planning on showing up. I have to take off like 5 minutes from now for a lacrosse game, but I wasn't supposed to be here, so I didn't practice, and last round didn't go very well, so I was fully prepared to follow the playoffs, but, I came in here with just enough time to get the race in, and somehow ran really well. I don't even know what happened, but, the car was just hooked up. I had that right front saved all night long, and you know what? We ended up third, and I'm very happy with that.
There's no doubt, very happy. What was a very strong run for you. It looked like out of a majority of the field, you had a lot of good long run pace, and with the strategy, you had a couple lap fresher tires and a majority of the drivers in front. It helped you to your advantage. What is about this Iowa Speedway that's very unique and interesting? Because I know we've already faced a lot of crazy tracks within the first round of the playoffs. So what about Iowa is a huge distinction, especially from your driving style, your perspective behind the wheel?
I really enjoy this track, to be honest. It's, lots of room to move around and lots of lane choice. You can kind of run anywhere and be fast anywhere. So it's a lot of fun. And, I was talking earlier, and it reminds me sort of a mile and a half and a short track combined, which I like short tracks a lot, and I'm pretty good at them as well. So, I was looking forward to this race, and like I said beforehand, when I thought I wasn't going to be able to run it, I was a little disappointed because I enjoy running this track. It's a lot of fun. But once I was able to run it, and it just came to me real quick, and I really enjoyed coming around this place because you slide and you drive it hard, pedal the car, lots of fun.
What it looked like second nature out on the track when we were watching you there move up through the field, and of course made that pass on Ethan Workman to get you into third at the end of this race. Of course, we know there's not much time that we have you for. You got to dip in a little bit. So before we let you go, Jay, is there anybody you just want to thank for making tonight's run happen?
Well, I want to thank my parents, first of all, for waiting for me right now, and second off, you guys for being in the booth all season long. You guys do a great job, and we're all super thankful to have you guys, and all the partners on the car as well. United Republic of Painters came on board, and the NASCAR Hotspot, Circle B Diecast, Dunk Pools. Thankful for them, supporting me and designing some of my cars and all that stuff.
Well, we appreciate your parents' patience to get to the lacrosse game in a little bit, but no, of course, Jay, I want to thank you so much for all the kind words here. We certainly do appreciate it, and on behalf of our team, I want to congratulate you on this third place finish from the virtual Iowa Speedway, and we hope to see you at Nashville Super Speedway in 1 week time.
For sure. Thank you, guys.
Jay Mulder, big move to the front of the field. He ends up third at the end of tonight's Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110. We'll move back upstairs to the broadcast booth, and we'll get our final thoughts on what was a very clean race, flag to flag. Usually don't see this quite often, but a very good race overall. We got a good amount of strategy in the midst as well. Great racing through a majority of the field, but no doubt, biggest storyline, Francisco, Garrett White putting it on, absolutely showing the field that he can put on clinic races like this, and he gets his third win in a row.
Yeah, it was a show-stopping effort by the 26 of Garrett White. He was able to show out to the field that he is going to be someone to be reckoned with if they're going to try and win this championship at Homestead in a couple of weeks' time. And going into Nashville, it's no surprise that he's probably the favorite going into that race as well, coming off a hat trick, trying to go for a fourth win in a row. Very difficult, but if he's able to do three, there's no reason why he doesn't have at least a shot to go for four next week. And next week's going to be very exciting, Kenneth. At least I've only covered one or two races at Nashville with you, and the other one I happen to be in the race for. So I'm not exactly too familiar with the racetrack from high above, but it'll be an opportunity to see the racetrack from a different perspective, and we'll see just how the race goes. It either could go like it was tonight, or it could go completely different. But one thing's for sure, Lebanon, Tennessee in a week's time is going to be a very active racetrack for playoff action.
It is definitely going to be an active racetrack, and again, another obstacle to what has been a very peculiar run through the playoffs. Again, we mentioned tracks like Darlington, Bristol, Talladega, all in one round. You don't expect to see them all close together like that. You usually see them more spread out throughout the playoffs. All of them were together, and we have a track like Iowa, which kind of throws a curveball, and then Nashville, a brand new track this series has never visited before, and like you heard with Josh Patterson there, hasn't visited the track since I believe he bought it back when it came out on the iRacing service. So there's a lot to learn, a big learning curve over there in 1 week time. We'll be there to show you all the coverage. We'll be there to show you all the note-taking from each and every driver who ends up ultimately getting the win from the Music City. We'll head off to Charlotte 1 week after that on March 31st, and then we'll close off the season with the Championship 4 down in South Florida at the virtual homestead of Miami Speedway. Race 17, you'll find that on April 7th, but of course all the races can be found right here on the KBueno Racing Network. So that does it tonight for our coverage of the Whiteout Sim Racing Iowa 110. Want to thank everybody that came out tonight and showed their full 100% here from the virtual Iowa Speedway. Of course, want to give our congratulations to Garrett White, who gets his 3rd win in a row in the WORC Dynamo Designs National Series. So for everybody that makes things possible on the WORC side, Grayson Collins, Josh Patterson, all the owners, all the admins that makes these races happen each and every week. And on behalf of our crew at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Beyer, for Keelan Belsha, and for my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Sing so long, good night from the cornfields. We'll peek out of the weeds to end up in a place full of guitars, a lot of music, but a lot of action from Nashville in 1 week time.